Claire Benson's phone buzzed with a message she didn't want to read. Mom, just confirming you are bringing someone to Christmas Eve dinner, right? We already told Delaney. She stood in the tiny break room of Wilder Construction, one hand gripping a chipped ceramic mug filled with lukewarm coffee, the other trembling slightly as she stared at the screen. Her breath caught, and for a moment all the noise in the building, the clatter of boots on concrete, the low rumble of winter wind against the office windows faded beneath the slow thud of her heart. Delaney. Of course, Delaney. Her cousin, the human megaphone of Bozeman, Montana, had probably posted something already. Claire didn't have to check Facebook to know it was bad. Maybe a cheeky update like, "Looks like we're having one more place setting at the table this year." Her fingers hovered over the phone as if she could will the lie into truth. But there was no boyfriend. No mystery man. Just Claire standing under the buzz of fluorescent lights in her worn ankle boots and a thrifted cardigan that still smelled faintly of someone else's dryer sheets. It had seemed harmless telling her mom she'd met someone. Just a little white lie to deflect the awkward silence after the last family Zoom call. A way to dodge the familiar round of questions. Are you seeing anyone? What happened with Connor? Are you lonely out there? She wasn't lonely, not really, just alone, and tired of the weight of it. Footsteps approached from the hallway, quick and light. Claire, you've got a delivery. Box from Missoula. It's on your desk. The voice belonged to Katie, the college-aged receptionist who wore fuzzy socks with her loafers and had no idea how deeply Claire envied her wide-open future. Thanks, Claire replied softly, slipping her phone into her pocket like it had betrayed her. She passed through the hallway and into the open-plan office where most of the crew was out on job sites, and the hum of heaters filled the quiet. Her desk sat in the far corner, nestled beneath a high window that framed the snow-covered parking lot like a postcard. A small pine tree candle flickered beside her monitor. On her chair sat a plain brown box. She didn't remember ordering anything. She opened it carefully, peeling back the tape. Inside, nestled in crinkled paper, was a snow globe. Claire blinked. A tiny log cabin stood inside the glass dome, surrounded by painted pines dusted with silver glitter. A family of 3 mother-father-child was frozen in mid-laughter beside a sled. A little tag on the box read, Bozeman Winter Market Collection. She didn't remember buying this, but she knew what it meant. It was the exact same globe her ex-fiancé had bought for her 3 Christmases ago. Claire sat down slowly, breath catching in her throat, not because it hurt the way it once had, but because time had passed and it still left a mark, like frostbite long after the thaw. Connor had ghosted her 6 weeks before the wedding, a canceled venue, a dress bag zipped tight in her old apartment closet, flowers that never got ordered, and a voicemail, just one that ended it all with too many apologies and not enough reasons. She ran her fingers along the base of the globe. This was a copy, a well-meaning gift from a vendor or supplier. Coincidence. But it rattled her more than she expected. Behind her, the office door creaked open. She didn't look up until the silence stretched. Jack Wilder didn't speak unless he had to. Everything okay? His voice was quiet, low. Claire startled, then straightened quickly, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Yes, sorry. Just got caught up in something. Jack leaned slightly on the edge of her desk, arms crossed. He wore his usual layers, dark sweater, over a collared flannel sleeves rolled once at the wrist steel watch, catching the soft winter light. His jeans were dusted with sawdust. She never quite knew if that was from nostalgia or habit. His eyes drifted to the snow globe. That's new, he said. Sort of. Just arrived. A copy of something I used to have. He didn't ask who gave her the original. He never pried. Claire hesitated, then exhaled. My mom texted. Bad news worse. She laughed under her breath. She's expecting to meet my boyfriend at Christmas Eve dinner, which is going to be awkward since I don't have one. Jack tilted his head slightly, thoughtful. You told her you did. She kept asking. I panicked. It was supposed to buy me a few days of peace. She looked up. Now I'm apparently the headliner at the family table. Delaney probably made a group chat. His mouth twitched, maybe a smile, maybe sympathy, and now I have 3 days to either fake food poisoning or produce a man out of thin air. He nodded the silence, stretching again. Then, well, I'm not thin air, and I'm free that night. Claire blinked. What if you need someone to play the part? His voice was even casual, like they were talking about reprinting flyers or updating QuickBooks. You could pretend it's me. She stared at him. You're kidding. I'm not. Her heart thudded in her chest. Jack, I'm not suggesting anything weird. He met her gaze. You're a good employee, and no one deserves to feel like they're under a spotlight at Christmas, especially not in front of Delaney. A pause. I could bring Owen, he added. Make it more believable. He's been asking if we're doing anything this year. Bethany's family isn't visiting. Her throat tightened at the name. Jack never spoke of his late wife unless he had to. When he did, it was always simple, direct, clean. Claire swallowed. You'd really do that, I run a company. I've worked with city inspectors' frozen job sites and 3 kinds of roofing delays this month. I can handle 1 dinner. She let out a shaky laugh. That might be the most romantic offer I've ever received. His expression didn't change, but his eyes softened. Just say the word. Claire stared at the snow globe again. The little house, the painted trees, the illusion of peace. 3 years ago, she'd dreamed of a perfect Christmas love, laughter, shared promises. This year, she had her job a snow globe from a box she didn't remember ordering, and a boss offering to pretend to be her boyfriend. And for the first time in a long while, her heart stirred with something unexpected. Not fear. Possibility. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. The snow globe was still on Claire's desk the next morning, catching soft light from the window, like it belonged there. She hadn't moved it. Couldn't bring herself to. Something about it felt too fragile. Too close. She took a sip of coffee, hazelnut, no sugar, and opened her email, trying to pretend her life hadn't shifted slightly off its axis in the past 24 hours. Pretend. That was the word, wasn't it? Pretend. Jack Wilder wasn't the one offering to save her from public humiliation. Pretend it didn't mean something that he, of all people, offered to bring his son into it. Pretend she hadn't laid awake most of the night wondering what kind of man did that without expecting anything in return. At precisely 8:42 a.m., he walked in. Jack never made noise when he entered a room, just appeared. His footsteps quiet, his coat already dusted with a fine layer of snow. Owen trailed behind him, hood half-zipped, a sketchbook tucked under his arm. Claire looked up as they passed her desk. Morning, she offered, voice gentler than she meant. Jack gave a small nod. Morning. Owen grinned and waved. Hi, Miss Claire. Hey, bud. Big drawing today? He held up his sketchbook proudly. I'm designing a snow fort, with trapdoors and a hot chocolate dispenser. She laughed softly. That's some 5-star engineering. Jack paused. I'll be in the back office. Owen, 10 minutes, then homework. Got it? Owen said already, plopping into the soft chair near the front window. Claire watched him settle, then turned her attention to the man disappearing down the hall. She shouldn't have said yes, but she had. And now Christmas Eve was 3 days away, and she had no idea what pretending looked like in real life. What did she tell people? How much did they say to Owen? How real was too real. She pushed away from her desk, grabbed her planner, and followed. Jack was setting his coffee down when she knocked on the door frame. "Got a minute?" He looked up. Of course. Claire stepped in, suddenly aware of how warm the office felt. Heat turned up higher than the rest of the building, the scent of cedar and something darker familiar. She stayed standing. "I just wanted to ask." She hesitated, gripping the edge of her planner like it might steady her. "Are we actually doing this?" Jack's eyes met hers. "You said yes?" "I did. And I meant it. I just..." She exhaled slowly. "I don't know how to fake something in front of my family without it turning into a complete circus." He nodded once thoughtful. "Then let's make it believable." Claire blinked. Believable. "If we're going to do this," he said calmly, "we do it well. A backstory, shared memories, inside jokes, small details. You've really thought about this. I don't do things halfway." Her stomach fluttered. Stupidly. Jack reached into a side drawer, pulled out a notepad, and flipped to a clean page. "Let's start with how we met." Claire raised a brow. At work, he considered, then shook his head. "Too obvious. Everyone here would know." She thought for a second. "Through a friend. Which friend?" She hesitated. "Katie. She's 22. "Right." Jack looked up at her, that almost smile flickering at the corner of his mouth. "How about this? You came to drop off cupcakes during the staff lunch. My dad invited you. You stayed for 10 minutes. I asked you to coffee the next week." Claire blinked. "That's oddly specific." He leaned back slightly. "It's believable." She nodded slowly. "Okay. So we've been seeing each other how long?" Jack tilted his head, calculating. "Let's say 6 weeks. Enough time for it to feel real, not enough to raise suspicions." "Right." A silence stretched between them. Comfortable. Waited. Claire opened her planner and scribbled notes. "Do we have a meet the family story?" Jack's voice softened. "Not yet." "But we will." She looked up, caught off guard by the way he said it. They were just pretending. "Right," Jack leaned forward again. "We should probably spend some time together, outside of work, if we're going to convince people it helps if we know each other." Claire hesitated. "Like, a date?" His eyes didn't waver. "Like practice." Her pulse quickened. "Okay," she said. Tonight works." He stood, grabbed his coat off the hook behind him. Claire stepped back instinctively. "I'll take Owen to his grandpa's after lunch. Then we'll go over everything." He paused. "Dinner." She nodded. "I'll cook." Jack raised a brow. "You cook." She lifted her chin. "I panic. Cook. There's a difference." He smiled. Not big, not showy, but real. And for the first time since she'd said yes to this ridiculous plan, Claire didn't feel like she was falling off a cliff. She felt steady. Later that afternoon, as snow fell soft and slow outside the office windows, Claire cleaned off her desk and packed her things. Jack had left with Owen an hour earlier. A quiet "See you tonight" spoken in passing like it was the most normal thing in the world. She went home and stood in her tiny kitchen staring into her pantry, like it might tell her what to do next. This wasn't just dinner. It was the beginning of something she couldn't name yet. By 6, the apartment smelled like rosemary and garlic. She lit 2 candles, not for mood, but because they made the place feel warmer somehow. Realer. A knock at the door. Claire smoothed her sweater and opened it. Jack stood there, scarf-loosened cheeks flushed from the cold. In his hand, a small paper bag. "Dessert," he said simply. She stepped aside. "Come in." He did, glancing around the apartment. Books everywhere. Mismatched furniture. Soft music playing low. He looked comfortable, like the space didn't surprise him. She handed him a mug of cider. "You look nervous," he said. "I am nervous." Jack took a sip, then met her eyes. "We'll be okay." The way he said it low and certain made her chest tighten, not with panic, but with something that felt dangerously close to hope. They sat across from each other at the small, round table. The food was simple, warm. She didn't talk much, afraid of saying too much. He didn't force her to fill the space. After dinner, he helped clear the dishes without being asked. They washed and dried side by side in silence. It was only when they were done that he leaned against the counter and asked quietly, "Do you regret saying yes?" Claire looked at him. Really looked. "No," she said softly. "I'm just afraid of what happens if we pull it off. And I still feel like this afterward." Jack didn't blink. "Like what?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Like it matters." He didn't answer right away, just stepped forward slowly, the air shifting between them. "I won't let you get hurt in this," he said. "Not by me." And somehow that was worse, because the way he said it sounded a lot like a promise. Claire had barely taken a bite of her cinnamon raisin toast when her phone started lighting up like a slot machine. Delaney Pierce had tagged her in a Facebook post. She stared at the screen, her breath catching mid-sip of coffee. The caption read, "Looks like someone's got a +1 this Christmas, can't wait to meet the lucky guy underneath," was a blurry photo clearly taken through the window of her apartment building last night. Jack, standing at her door, holding the dessert bag. Claire's stomach dropped. The comments were already rolling in. "About time, Claire. Is that the guy from the construction company? You go, girl." She dropped her phone onto the counter, eyes wide, heart hammering. It wasn't the photo. It wasn't even the gossip. It was the timing. They hadn't even started pretending yet, and the town had already decided it was real. Claire ran a hand through her hair and stared blankly out the window. Snow dusted the edges of her fire escape soft, and still a stark contrast to the storm spiraling on her phone. The lie had already grown legs, and now it was sprinting. She was still staring at the screen when her mom called. Claire groaned under her breath, bracing herself, then answered. "Morning, Mom." "Well, Margot Benson said her voice already 2 shades too bright. Is there anything you want to share with your mother?" Claire closed her eyes. "It's new. I wasn't ready to say anything yet. But you are bringing him to dinner, right? Delaney said he's adorable. Mom, is he coming to church with us that morning, too? Because you know how people talk when there's a new couple and they're not seen together, Mom." A pause. Claire softened her voice. "We're figuring it out." "Okay." Margot's sigh came through the line like a gust of disapproval wrapped in silk. "Fine, but if he's anything like Connor." "He's not," Claire said, sharper than intended. The silence that followed was brief but heavy. "I'll see you at dinner," her mom said, and the call ended without another word. Claire set her phone down, slowly, pulse rising. She hated how fast her hands shook after every conversation like that, how fast her mind scrambled to fix things. This was supposed to be simple. Pretend. Smile. Survive. Now everyone already had expectations. By the time she walked into the office, Jack was standing near the front desk, flipping through a clipboard, brow furrowed. He looked up as she entered. "You okay?" She held up her phone. "Bozeman Facebook is officially on fire." Jack blinked. "Already someone snapped a photo of you at my place. It's everywhere." He glanced at Owen, seated in the corner with his sketchbook, then back to her. "Did it cause problems?" Claire hesitated. "My mom called. She's planning for church. Matching outfits might be next." Jack didn't laugh. but something softened behind his eyes. "I'm sorry, it's not your fault," Claire said quickly, then added quieter, "Just hard to breathe when people are already writing the ending of a story we haven't even started." Jack set the clipboard down. "Let's take a walk." She blinked. "Now you need air. I need coffee. It's a win-win." She hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the sky was low and gray, the kind of winter light that softened the edges of everything. Snow crunched beneath their boots as they walked the short path to the cafe 2 blocks down. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Jack broke the silence. "You don't owe anyone an explanation." Claire kept her eyes forward. "But they expect one." "Then give them what they want." She stopped. He turned, watching her carefully. He added, "Let's give them a story that we can control. Not Delaney, not your mom, not Facebook." Claire's throat tightened. "But what if it's too real?" Jack's voice was steady. "We keep it grounded, honest, clear." She looked at him for a long beat. "You're surprisingly good at this." He shrugged. "My wife was the people person. I just learned how to adapt." The mention of Bethany landed between them like snowfall, quiet, delicate, but impossible to ignore. Claire's gaze dropped. "Do you talk about her often?" Jack shook his head. "Not really." Another pause. "Do you want to?" she asked. He looked up at the sky for a moment, then back at her. "Bethany and I were solid, comfortable. But losing her made me realize how much I'd let her carry the emotional weight. I didn't know how to talk without her." Claire felt something shift in her chest. "Maybe that's why this is hard," he added. "I don't want to mess it up even if it's fake." She swallowed, feeling the heat of emotion push behind her ribs. They reached the cafe and slipped inside warmth and the smell of cinnamon wrapping around them like a blanket. Jack ordered 2 coffees hers with oat milk, no sugar, without needing to ask. She noticed. Back at the office, the mood was different. Lighter somehow. Claire felt it the moment she walked in. And then she saw the new post. Delaney again. This time it was a screenshot of her own status from 3 years ago, back when she was engaged. "So grateful to be spending Christmas with the love of my life. Can't wait for our forever to start." Underneath the caption, "Funny how history repeats itself." Claire froze. Jack, watching from the hallway, stepped closer. "What is it?" She turned the screen to him. His jaw tightened. Owen glanced up from his sketchbook, sensing the change in the room. Jack looked at Claire. "You don't have to respond." "I wasn't going to. You're allowed to be mad." "I'm not mad." Her voice cracked. "I'm humiliated." Silence. Claire stepped back, chest tightening. This was a mistake. Jack's brow furrowed. "Claire, I thought I could handle this, but it's all too fast, too much." Then we slow it down. "And what watch the town tear me apart one post at a time." Jack was quiet. "Then they don't know you. But they think they do." She let out a shaky breath. "Everyone does." The room was too bright, her thoughts too loud. Jack took a step closer. Not touching, not pushing. Just there. "If this feels wrong," he said quietly, "we stop. No questions asked." Claire blinked, eyes hot. But then Owen stood from his chair, clutching his sketchbook in both hands. He walked up slowly, holding it out to her. "I made this for you." Claire opened the book. Inside was a crayon drawing, 3 figures standing by a tree. Claire, Jack, and Owen, each with little snowflake sweaters. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, "Our first Christmas." Her hand trembled. Jack watched her closely, jaw tight. Claire looked at Owen, then back at the drawing. The world slowed. The noise quieted. And somewhere deep inside, something softened. She looked at Jack. "I'm in," she whispered. This time she meant it. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought matter to me either way. Claire stood in front of her hallway mirror, adjusting the edge of her scarf for the 5th time. The reflection didn't lie. She looked nervous. Her sweater was a soft, cranberry red festive. She told herself not trying too hard. Hair pinned half up the way she used to wear it when she needed to feel just a little braver. She stared at her own eyes and whispered, "It's just pretend." But it didn't feel like pretend anymore. Downstairs, Jack's truck rumbled to a stop. She heard the familiar crunch of tires over snow, followed by 2 car doors closing in quick succession. Her heartbeat picked up pace. Tonight wasn't Christmas dinner, but it was the start. They'd been invited to the Winderley Holiday Market, a local event in downtown Bozeman, where everyone showed up in layers of plaid and wool and pretended the cold was charming instead of freezing. Live music, cider, twinkle lights, and exactly the kind of setting where couples held hands and neighbors whispered. This was the first time she'd be seen with Jack and Owen. Together. She grabbed her coat, took one last look at herself, and headed out before her nerves could talk her out of it. Jack was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, hands in his pockets. Owen stood beside him in a green puffer coat holding a thermos with both hands. Claire offered a small smile. "You guys ready for this?" Owen grinned. "Dad said we're going undercover." Jack gave her a side glance. "I said we're flying under the radar." He translated it. Claire chuckled, thankful for the lightness. As they walked toward the market, the city felt wrapped in warmth despite the snow. Strings of white lights hung across rooftops. Soft music drifted from speakers tucked under vendor tents, and every storefront window glowed with golden light. Claire noticed it immediately, the way people looked. Not maliciously, just knowingly. Small-town eyes. Jack seemed unfazed, nodding politely at passers-by. Owen chattered beside them about the crafts booth and the gingerbread contest, his words quick and hopeful. They stopped by a cocoa stand, where Owen ordered with exact change, and Jack handed Claire a steaming paper cup before she even had to ask. "Thank you," she said softly. Jack looked down at her, his breath visible in the cold. "How are you holding up, still breathing? That's a start." Claire took a sip, the warmth grounding her. They wandered the rows of stalls, pausing at a handmade ornament table. Owen ran ahead to look at a display of wooden toys, leaving Claire and Jack under the soft glow of the canopy lights. She picked up a carved snowflake, traced the edges with her thumb. "You okay?" he asked again. Quieter now. Claire looked at him. "Do you think this is going to work?" Jack didn't hesitate. "I do." She searched his face for doubt, but found none. "I keep thinking someone's going to figure it out," she admitted. "Like I'm walking around with a sign taped to my back that says, 'Liar.'" Jack stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Claire, look around." She did. People were smiling at them, nodding, whispering yes, but with curiosity, not cruelty. They see something real because what they're seeing is 2 people trying to be kind to each other, Jack said. Not some soap opera. She blinked against the sudden burn in her eyes. "I didn't expect this to feel so—" She paused, searching safe. Jack held her gaze. "Maybe that's what happens when you stop trying to impress everyone and just let it be what it is." Claire nodded slowly. Owen returned, then holding something behind his back. "What's that?" she asked. He revealed a small snow globe inside a tiny snowman with a crooked hat surrounded by glittery flakes. "It's for you," he said, eyes wide. Claire's throat tightened. "Why me?" Owen shrugged. "Because I want you to remember this night." Jack looked over, quiet. Claire crouched slightly, accepting the gift with careful hands. "Thank you, Owen. That means a lot. He smiled, then turned toward the cookie decorating table nearby. As he walked off, Jack said softly, "He doesn't give gifts easily." Claire glanced at the snow globe again. "Neither do I." A familiar voice interrupted them from behind. Well, isn't this cozy?" Claire stiffened. Delaney, wearing an oversized red scarf and glossy lips, she appeared as if summoned by scent eyes already scanning the three of them, like she was assembling a headline. "Hi, Delaney," Claire said, keeping her tone even. Jack straightened slightly beside her, his expression unreadable. Delaney folded her arms. "Didn't expect to see you out so soon. I mean, after the Connor situation, I figured you'd take things slower this time." Claire's stomach twisted. Jack spoke before she could. "We all carry history. Doesn't mean we're defined by it." Delaney raised an eyebrow. Deep. Claire stepped forward. "It's good to see you, Delaney. Hope your holiday's off to a warm start." Delaney blinked, clearly caught off guard by Claire's calm. "Sure. Yeah, I'll see you at dinner." She gave a tight smile and walked off, already pulling out her phone. Jack exhaled through his nose. "She's a lot. She's always been a lot." Claire turned to him. "Thanks for what you said. I meant it." They rejoined Owen at the cookie station, helped him frost a lopsided snowman, and spent the next half hour laughing at how badly Jack's decorating skills had declined. By the time they were walking back to the truck, the mood had settled again, easy, warm, like they were slipping into something familiar. As they reached her building, Claire lingered on the sidewalk. "Thank you for tonight," she said, glancing at both of them. Owen beamed. "Best night of the week," Jack met her eyes. "You're doing great." "Even with the sudden press appearances," he chuckled. "Especially with those." She hesitated, then leaned forward just a little and pressed a kiss to Owen's forehead. "Good night, buddy." He blushed proud. Then she turned to Jack. Neither moved for a moment. It wasn't romantic, but it wasn't nothing. Jack lifted his hand, brushed a bit of snow from her shoulder. "Good night, Claire." She watched them drive off, her fingers tightening around the snow globe. This was the hook. The moment everything began to tilt. Not because she was pretending, but because somewhere deep down, she no longer wanted to. Snow drifted softly outside Claire's office window, painting the world in silence. It was the kind of morning that made time feel slower, heavier, like it was daring her to pause. She didn't. Her inbox was full. Permit requests, vendor updates, a last-minute materials delay, and somewhere between typing a follow-up email and double-checking numbers on a spreadsheet, she'd forgotten to breathe. Until Jack's voice cut through the hum of fluorescent light. "Lunch," she looked up, startled. Jack stood in her doorway coat, still on dusted with snow, 2 takeout containers in hand. Claire blinked. "Did I forget we had plans?" "Nope. Just figured you wouldn't remember to eat." He stepped in and placed one of the boxes on her desk. "You've been working straight since 8. She glanced at the time. "It's almost 1. He nodded once. "Thought so." Claire hesitated, then closed her laptop. "Thanks," she said, voice softer. They sat across from each other in the break room, the quiet between them comfortable. The smell of garlic and roasted vegetables filled the space as she opened the container chicken over farro and roasted squash. Jack had remembered her usual. "Do you always do that?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Do what, notice?" Jack looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Only when it matters." Claire lowered her eyes to her fork. "You're very good at making a girl question what's real. Is that a bad thing?" "No," she said quietly. "It's just a little dangerous." He didn't respond right away, but she could feel his gaze, heavy, intentional. "You don't have to be scared of me," he said. I'm not, she answered too quickly. Jack's voice stayed calm. Then what is it? Claire hesitated, chewing slowly, organizing the thought before speaking. It's not you, it's the part of me that remembers how it felt the last time I believed someone meant it. He nodded slow. Connor? She didn't flinch, but her voice dropped. He made it easy to believe, right up until the moment he left. Jack looked down at his food, then back up at her. I'm not him, I know that, Claire said. Then, after a breath, but it doesn't make the echo any quieter. Another pause settled between them. Then Jack said something she didn't expect. I panicked when Bethany got sick. Claire blinked. What? He met her eyes. I didn't know how to be strong for her and be scared at the same time. So I buried the fear, acted like everything was fine, smiled when I should have sat down, talked about work when I should have held her hand. Claire's breath caught. Jack continued, his voice low. I spent 2 years pretending I wasn't grieving, because people needed me to be okay. And now with you this? It's the first time in a long time I'm not pretending. Claire stared at him, something fragile cracking open in her chest. But I get it, if it's too soon. I won't push. Her throat tightened. It's not too soon. It's just realer than I thought it would be. They finished lunch quietly, the mood softer now, more intimate. Claire felt the shift like a weight in the room, not heavy but grounding. As she stood to clear her container, her phone buzzed. New message from Delaney Pierce. Can't wait to see you both at the cookie exchange tonight. Dress cute? Claire sighed. Jack caught the look. What now? Delaney's hosting some kind of cookie contest / exhibition of public affection. He raised an eyebrow. Are we entering? Apparently we're already in the bracket. Jack chuckled. You bake about as well as you decorate cookies, she said, smirking. He grinned. This should be fun. The event was held that evening at the Community Rec Center, a large hall strung with fairy lights and filled with the smell of sugar cinnamon and small-town competition. Tables lined the walls, each one loaded with plates of homemade cookies, recipe cards, and carefully arranged props. Claire and Jack arrived just after 6, Owen in tow, proudly carrying a tray of oddly shaped gingerbread cookies with candy buttons and icing drips that looked vaguely like snow gear. They set up at their assigned table between the Harris twins and the infamous Monica Lang, whose frosted pecan snowflakes were legendary. Claire felt the stares almost immediately. People whispering, smiling too long, nudging each other as they passed. Jack leaned in close. You okay? She nodded. I just forgot how loud Bozeman can be without saying anything. He looked around. They're curious. They're nosy. Same thing. Claire let out a laugh that surprised even her. Hey, Owen, whispered, tugging her sleeve. I made name cards. He handed her 2 folded pieces of cardstock. On hers, he'd written Claire Best Cookie Chef Ever in blue crayon. On Jack's, Jack Cookie Assistant. And Dad. She blinked hard. You're really something, kid. Owen grinned. You're my favorite grown-up. Jack glanced over, smiling softly. Claire couldn't look at him without feeling something twist. The night blurred into moments. Laughter, compliments, Delaney swinging by with a sharp smile, and an unnecessary comment about how quickly things had moved. Claire replied with a sweeter smile and said, Well, when you know, you know. Jack chuckled under his breath. Later, as they stood by the punch table, she caught him watching her, what she asked, half laughing. You're good at this. At pretending. At showing up, Jack said. At being here, even when it's uncomfortable. Claire looked down. Then back up. You make it easier, she said. They stood in silence, watching Owen chat with another kid near the cookie judging table. Then Jack leaned in, voice low. "Is this still pretend for you?" Claire's heart slammed once hard. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. "And that scares me." He nodded. "Me too." The moment held like something suspended in frost. Then Claire looked away, blinking rapidly. Jack didn't push, just stood beside her. That night when he walked her to her door, Claire hesitated before turning the key. "I'm not good at falling slowly," she said. Jack nodded once. "Then don't." She looked at him. "Just fall," he said. And this time when he reached out, he didn't brush snow from her coat. He touched her hand. Just once. Long enough for her to feel it, and long enough to know it wasn't pretend anymore. Claire stood at the kitchen sink the next morning, staring out at the snow-covered alley behind her building, her hands wrapped around a half-warm mug of coffee she'd reheated twice, but hadn't touched. She hadn't slept much. Not because she was overthinking the cookie contest, though Monica Lang's smug smile might haunt her for a while, but because of 5 simple words. Then don't. Just fall. Jack had said them like they were nothing, like falling was easy, but Claire had fallen before, and it had cost her everything. She placed the mug down, exhaled, and ran a hand through her hair. Her phone buzzed. Text from Jack. "Can you swing by the shop today around 11? Got something to show you. Bring gloves." She read it 3 times. "Bring gloves." She texted back, "What kind of gloves? Work gloves or wool mittens?" His reply came quick. "Yes." She stared at that single word, unsure if he was messing with her or being cryptic on purpose. At 10:58, she pulled into the gravel lot beside Wilder & Son Custom Woodworks, the truck bay door already rolled open, soft sounds of sanding and country radio drifting out. The cold hit her hard as she stepped out, wrapping her scarf higher. Jack appeared near the entrance, dressed in a navy thermal sleeves, pushed-up hands dusty with sawdust. Claire tried not to notice the way his forearms looked when he pushed his gloves into his back pocket. "Thought you said bring gloves?" she said as she walked up. He grinned. "I did." She held them up, mismatched gray mittens. "I brought personality." Jack motioned her inside. "Come on, I want to show you something." The scent hit her the moment she stepped in pine cedar, the faint trace of varnish. Claire had always loved this smell. Something about it felt grounded, solid, like you could build something and make it last. He led her to the back where a large sheet was draped over something tall and oddly shaped. Owen peeked out from around a workbench, grinning mischievously. "You helped?" she asked him. Owen nodded enthusiastically. "I held the screws and the hot cocoa." Jack threw a look over his shoulder. "We don't use cocoa during construction. Only when she's watching," Owen said and winked. Jack rolled his eyes but smiled. Then he turned to Claire, his tone softening. "Close your eyes." She narrowed them. "Seriously, trust me." She hesitated, then did. The sound of the sheet being pulled back came next, then Jack's voice, low and warm. "Okay, open." Claire opened her eyes. It was a sleigh. Not a full-sized one, but handcrafted, beautifully detailed with curved wooden runners and a red velvet cushion, the kind you'd find in an old-fashioned Christmas window display. She blinked. "It's for the Christmas parade," Jack said. "Figured we needed a good ride if we're making an appearance." Claire stared at it, heart-catching. "You made this." Jack gave a one-shouldered shrug. "Had some help." Owen popped up beside her. "It even has a lantern." Claire stepped forward, fingers grazing the polished edge. It was stunning, smooth and strong, with tiny hand-carved snowflakes along the side panels. A labor of time and care. And he'd made it. For them. She turned to Jack, voice almost a whisper. "You didn't have to do this, I know. Then why he didn't answer right away? Just looked at her the way he always did, like she was a puzzle he already understood, but still wanted to take the time to solve. "Because I want people to see you the way I do," he said finally. "Not as someone who's recovering or pretending, just someone who belongs." The words settled in her chest like weight and warmth all at once. She blinked fast, trying to keep her voice even. "You realize this makes things harder." Jack tilted his head. "How so?" Claire took a breath. "Because now I don't know where the act ends, or if I want it to." Silence stretched. Then Owen, oblivious, broke in. "Can we test drive it?" Claire let out a shaky laugh. Jack smiled. "I'll hook it up to the trailer." "Give you a dry run?" he said to Owen, then turned back to her. "You riding along?" Claire looked at the sleigh, then at him. She nodded. They rode through the outer lot, bundled in coats and scarves, Owen steering with pretend reins, Jack sitting close beside Claire, their shoulders brushing occasionally. The snow had stopped, but the air was cold and sharp and clear. As they rode, Claire felt something loosen inside her, something that had been coiled tight for years. She let herself lean into the warmth of the moment, let the laughter come freely when Owen started narrating like they were in a movie. They returned to the shop, cheeks pink from the cold hearts a little lighter. Jack helped her down from the sleigh. Their hands touched. He didn't let go right away. Neither did she. Back in her car, alone again, Claire sat with her fingers wrapped tight around the steering wheel. The snow globe Owen had given her still sat on the dashboard. She glanced at it, then pulled out her phone. Text to Jack. "You're making it really hard to remember what's fake." He responded a minute later. "Good, because I haven't been pretending for a while." Claire stared at the screen. No part of her knew what to do with that. But every part of her wanted to find out. Claire was halfway through stringing lights across her tiny living room window when her phone buzzed again. She didn't check it right away. Her fingers were tangled in a knot of green wire, and one of the bulbs had just gone dark. But something about the persistent vibration made her pause. She tugged the plug free, letting the half-lit strand fall, and reached for her phone. Text from Delaney Need to confirm you and Jack still on for the church Christmas brunch. Aunt Gloria's asking if you two will be seated at the couple's table. Claire stared at the screen. She hadn't said yes to the brunch. She hadn't even remembered there was a brunch. But of course Delaney had already RSVP'd on her behalf, because that's what Delaney did. She wrote everyone else's story with perfect confidence and zero permission. Claire set the phone down and ran a hand through her hair. There was something about being back in Bozeman that made her feel like she was living two lives at once, the woman she'd become standing in her own space, carving her own path, and the girl who had once played by everyone else's rules just to avoid disappointing them. The two selves were starting to blur. A knock at the door cut through her thoughts. Not a text, not a call, an actual knock. Claire's stomach flipped. She opened it to find Jack holding a paper bag and a sheepish look. "Did I interrupt your introvert time?" he asked. She smiled, stepping aside. "Only the part where I was about to argue with a string of lights." He stepped in, brushing snow from his boots. "I brought soup, the real kind. No cans involved. Homemade, mostly. I didn't grow the carrots or anything." Claire laughed as he followed her into the kitchen. The bag smelled incredible garlic thyme, something warm and buttery. Jack unpacked 2 mason jars and a small container of sourdough croutons. "I figured it's been a week of events and smiling. You probably needed one night that's just quiet." She watched him for a second. "You always know what I need before I do." Jack glanced up. "Is that a good thing or a little creepy?" "It's unnerving," she admitted. "In the best way." They sat at her kitchen island soup, steaming between them, soft music playing from her old Bluetooth speaker. Claire had lit a single candle, just because. The tiny flicker danced between them, casting shadows that felt more intimate than she'd intended. So she said, breaking the silence we've now fake-dated through a cookie contest, a holiday market, and a sleigh ride. And according to Delaney, we're now expected at church brunch as a committed couple. Jack didn't flinch. I saw the message. She CC'd you, he smirked. Small towns. Nothing's ever just between two people. Claire groaned. I'm losing track of where the line is. Jack stirred his soup. What if we stop drawing one? She blinked. I mean, he added, we don't have to figure everything out tonight. But this? He gestured gently between them. It's real. Even if we started backwards. Claire looked down. You've been kind to me, she said. Thoughtful, steady. But I need to know this isn't just about filling a space for the holidays. Jack leaned forward. You're not a placeholder. Then what am I? He didn't rush the answer. You're someone I admire. Someone who sees people deeply, who makes Owen feel safe, who makes me feel like there's still something good ahead. And I don't want to walk away from that when the tree comes down. Claire's eyes burned. You don't even hesitate, do you? She whispered. Jack tilted his head. Only when I'm trying to give you space. She let that sit. They ate in silence for a few moments, the only sound the occasional clink of spoon against bowl. Then Claire asked quietly, What happens if this ends badly? Jack looked at her eyes steady. Then we'll know we tried with our whole hearts, and that's more than most people can say. Something inside her cracked open again. She reached for her spoon, but her hand shook slightly. Jack noticed, reached across the counter, covered her hand with his. Whatever you're afraid of, I'm not going anywhere, he said. Not unless you ask me to. Claire couldn't speak. She just nodded. After dinner, they didn't say much. Jack helped her wind the lights again. Owen had drawn a small picture that he'd left folded in Jack's coat pocket, a stick figure of the three of them building a snowman labeled in crooked kid handwriting us. He didn't show it to Claire. Not yet. When he stood at the door, jacket-zipped hat in hand, he looked at her like he wanted to say more. She stepped forward. Closed the space between them. You make it hard to be cautious, she whispered. Jack smiled slow and soft. That's the goal. She leaned up and pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek. Good night, Jack. Good night, Claire. He left with the picture still in his pocket. And Claire stood behind the door, hand on the wood heart, pounding in her chest. This was no longer about pretending. This was something else entirely, and she didn't know whether to be terrified or hopeful. Claire stepped out into the cold morning air, the chill brushing against her cheeks like a quiet reminder Christmas was almost here. Less than a week. The tree lot near Maine had already thinned out. The town square had a snowman contest scheduled, and her family, well, they were expecting Jack to show up at brunch this Sunday like it was the most natural thing in the world. She tightened her scarf and headed to Wilder & Son with a grocery bag swinging at her side, homemade cinnamon rolls still warm. Not an apology, not a declaration, just a quiet offering. When she stepped inside the workshop, the scent of sawdust and pine greeted her like always, steady and grounding. Owen looked up from a low work table where he was building a popsicle stick catapult, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. Claire. She smiled. You hungry always? Jack appeared from around the corner, wiping his hands on a shop rag, a smudge of wood glue on his forearm. He looked surprised, and then something softer passed over his face. I brought bribes, Claire said, lifting the bag. Jack motioned toward the office. We've got coffee. Inside the small break room felt cozier than usual. Owen was focused on piling sugar onto his roll, and Jack poured 2 mugs and passed her one without asking how she liked it. He already knew. They sat the silence between them, full of things unsaid. Claire finally broke it. "How are you feeling about Sunday?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "Church brunch with your entire family and Delaney lurking in the corner with a clipboard?" "Thrilled." She laughed quietly. "You sure?" His voice dropped. "Only if you are." Claire hesitated, her fingers tightening around her mug. "I keep telling myself this is just for the holidays. But it's getting harder to remember what's part of the act and what's not." Jack studied her face. "Do you want there to still be an act?" Claire looked away. "I don't know. That wasn't entirely true." She did know. She just didn't know how to say it without unraveling everything she'd built around herself. Jack didn't press, but his silence said enough. He was giving her room. Maybe too much. Owen broke the quiet by hopping down from his chair. "Can we go ice skating later?" They opened the rink by the school. Jack looked to Claire, silently asking. She nodded. "I haven't been in years, so if I fall, you're both responsible." Owen grinned. "Deal." The rink was small and crowded with families, laughter echoing across the ice. Claire laced her boots slowly, anxiety curling in her stomach. She hadn't skated since college. It used to be a Christmas Eve tradition before her parents' marriage frayed, before holidays became performances. Jack stepped onto the ice, first surprisingly graceful. Owen followed, wobbling at first, but quickly finding his rhythm. Claire stood at the edge, 1 foot on the ice, already regretting her decision. Jack skated up to her, hand out. "You coming? Define coming." "Trust me." She hesitated, then reached for his hand. Her fingers slid into his, and immediately a warmth pulsed through her chest. Jack pulled her gently onto the ice, steadying her with the calm confidence of someone who wasn't just strong, but safe. Claire wobbled, swore under her breath, and clung to his arm. "This was a terrible idea," she muttered. "You're doing fine. I look like a newborn deer, a very graceful deer." She burst out laughing, the sound surprising even herself. Owen zipped past them, hands in the air. "I'm faster than Santa, Jack," and Claire glided forward slowly, shakily at first, then with more ease. The cold air stung her cheeks, but she didn't care. The feeling of Jack's hand wrapped around hers, steady and warm, made the rest fade. "You know what's funny?" she said after a few laps. "What I used to think love was this big, loud thing. Fireworks, dramatic speeches. But this feels like breathing." Jack looked at her, his face unreadable for a beat. Then he said, "That's what it's supposed to feel like." They skated a while longer until the sky deepened, and the lights over the rink cast everything in a golden haze. Claire sat on a bench, unlacing her boots when a woman approached. Claire Benson. Claire glanced up. She didn't recognize the voice. "I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Amanda. I work with your sister Beth. We met once at her engagement party. I just wanted to say..." Amanda glanced toward Jack and Owen. "I think it's really wonderful what you're doing. After everything with Connor, it's nice to see you happy." Claire's stomach dropped. Amanda meant well, but the reminder hit like a pinprick. "I'm glad you're here," Amanda continued. "Jack seems like the real deal." Claire nodded stiffly. "He is." Amanda smiled and left. Jack returned, sensing the shift immediately. "Everything okay?" Claire forced a smile. "Yeah, just someone from Beth's work." They drove home in quiet. When Jack walked her to her door, Claire hesitated. "I didn't handle that well," she admitted. "The Connor mention, it threw me." "You don't owe anyone an explanation," he said gently. But I do feel like I'm pretending again. Like we're on display. Jack looked at her for a long moment. You want to end it? She blinked. What? This fake dating thing, he said carefully. If it's hurting more than helping, we stop. No pressure, no hard feelings. Claire stared at him, and suddenly the weight in her chest shifted, because she realized Jack wasn't the one making her feel like she had to pretend. She was. Jack had been steady, honest, patient. It was her fear that kept drawing a line between them. No, she whispered. I don't want to stop. Jack's shoulders relaxed. I just need time to figure out what this is, she added, and how to let it in. He nodded. I can wait. Claire took a small step forward, reached up, brushed snowflakes from the edge of his collar. I don't think I've ever had anyone wait. Jack leaned in just enough for her to feel the closeness, but not enough to close the gap. Then it's about time someone did. The morning of the church Christmas brunch arrived with soft flurries of snow that clung to tree branches and rooftops like powdered sugar. Claire stared at herself in the mirror, smoothing the edge of her deep green sweater dress, trying to remember how to breathe. Her reflection looked composed, tasteful earrings, understated makeup, that one coat her mother always said brought out her eyes. But inside she felt like a live wire. This wasn't just brunch. This was the first time her family would see her with Jack in public in front of everyone. It would be Delaney's dream, a small-town romance story playing out like one of those holiday movies she swore she didn't watch but always quoted. Claire had barely slept. Her thoughts kept looping back to what Amanda had said at the rink, and the way Jack had offered her an out so gently. He always knew when to step in, and when to stand back. Now she was choosing to step forward. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jack. We're here. Owen's wearing his tie sideways, but insists it's a new fashion movement. You ready? Claire smiled in spite of herself. She texted back, on my way out. Don't fix the tie. Let him lead the revolution. When she stepped outside, Jack was leaning against the truck, dressed in a navy wool coat that somehow made him look both rugged and impossibly kind. Owen waved wildly from the back seat, grinning beneath a puff of brown curls. You look amazing, Jack said simply as she approached. Claire flushed. You always say the right thing. No, he said softly. Just the honest one. They drove in a calm silence, Owen singing Jingle Bell Rock off-key from the back seat. The church lot was already filling up. People waved as they pulled in Mrs. Lanning from the bookstore. Walt from city maintenance, a few faces Claire hadn't seen in years. As they stepped inside, the smell of cinnamon rolls and pine hit them like a memory. The fellowship hall was strung with white lights, and tables were dressed in red runners and gold chargers. It was beautiful and overwhelming. Claire squeezed Jack's hand before letting go. Her father spotted her from across the room, his face breaking into a proud grin. Beside him stood her sister, Beth, perfect as always in a cream dress and pearls and Delaney clipboard in hand, eyes scanning like a hawk. Well, well, Delaney said as they approached. Look who actually showed up on time. Claire smiled tightly. Miracles happen. Jack extended a hand to Claire's father. Good to see you again, Mr. Benson. Call me Henry, he said warmly, clapping Jack on the shoulder. We're just glad you could make it. Beth stepped forward, kissing Claire on the cheek. Mom would have loved this. Claire's heart squeezed. Their mother had always made holidays feel magical. Losing her 2 years ago had left a quiet ache at every family gathering. Owen tugged on Beth's sleeve. Do we sit anywhere? You, she said, smiling down at him. Get the place of honor. The meal began with a prayer, and then came the floodplates past, hands brushed small talk, layered with meaning. Claire found herself watching Jack more than eating, the way he helped Owen scoop potatoes, how he listened when her father launched into a story, the polite way he deflected questions about how long they'd been dating with a warm smile and a vague timeline. He made it look easy. Claire, on the other hand, felt her heartbeat in her ears. After dessert, the room shifted into mingling. Claire stood near the coffee table trying to catch her breath when Beth approached. "You look different," Beth said, sipping her cider. Claire gave a half laugh. "Thanks. No, I mean it. Happier. Like there's light behind your eyes again." Claire looked down at her cup. Beth continued. "Connor never really made space for you. He liked being the center." Claire flinched. "That's not fair." Beth softened. "Maybe. But it's true." They stood quietly for a moment. "Jack's not a placeholder," Claire said, "even if it started that way." Beth nodded. "Good. Because he looked at you just now like he was memorizing the way you breathe." Claire blinked, caught off guard by the emotion those words stirred. Across the room, Jack was helping clear plates. Owen stood beside him, mimicking his every move like a shadow with a purpose. Claire stepped away from her sister. She walked up to Jack, tapped him on the elbow. "Want to get some air?" He nodded, setting the plates down. Outside, the snow had thickened. Claire pulled her coat tighter, breath misting in the air. They stood under the old tree near the parking lot, quiet for a long moment. "I know it's been a lot," she said. Jack looked at her. "I'd do it again. Every awkward handshake, every forced smile. All of it." Claire met his eyes. "Even with everyone watching us like we're the town's new holiday feature, especially then." She swallowed. "I don't want this to end when the decorations come down." Jack's brow softened. "Claire?" She stepped closer. "I keep trying to make sense of it, keep waiting for the moment where I realize I imagined the whole thing. But you keep showing up. And I think I want that. Not just for Christmas." Jack's hand found hers. "I'm not going anywhere," he said again. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled something small out, a snowflake-shaped cookie wrapped in cellophane tied with a ribbon. "I made this," she said. "With Owen's help. We're not winning any contests, but it's the first thing I've made that didn't fall apart." Jack took it gently. "Then it's perfect," he said. Claire looked up at him, snow dusting her lashes. And this time she didn't hesitate. She leaned in, kissed him soft, real warm against the cold. No performance. No pretending. Just two people choosing something new in the middle of an old town beneath a sky full of falling snow. The next morning, Claire stood at her kitchen sink, watching snow swirl outside the window, coffee growing cold in her hands. She had kissed Jack. Not under mistletoe. Not because someone had dared them. Not as part of the plan. She had chosen to kiss him. And now the quiet hum of the morning felt different, charged, like something had shifted beneath the surface of everything she'd tried so hard to control. Her phone buzzed. Text from Jack Morning. "I've got a delivery to make in Livingston. Want to ride along? Owen's coming too. Could be a fun little escape." Claire smiled. She typed back, "I'll bring the snacks." An hour later, she was wedged between Jack and Owen in the cab of his truck, a thermos of hot cocoa between them and a bag of pretzels rustling in Owen's lap. Country roads stretched ahead, snow falling in slow spirals, blanketing everything in soft white. The delivery was for a hand-carved dining table, a custom order Jack had been working on for weeks. The client, an older couple restoring a Victorian farmhouse, met them with warm smiles and spiced cider. Claire watched as Jack navigated the tight corners of the wraparound porch, lifting the table with practiced strength, Owen doing his best to supervise. "He's good with people." the woman said softly, watching Jack work. Quiet but warm. You can tell he's been through something, but not in a broken way, in a strong way. Claire looked at her. Yes, that's exactly it. As they drove back, Owen eventually nodded off his head, leaning against Claire's shoulder. She didn't move, just listened to the hum of the tires and the soft breath of the boy beside her. You okay, Jack? Asked his voice low. Claire turned her head slightly. I think so. He glanced at her, then back to the road. That kiss. I meant it, she said quietly. Jack's grip on the wheel tightened just a hair. I'm not great at this, she continued. The real part, the after part, I always overthink it. I make it harder than it needs to be. Then don't. She smiled at his simplicity. You say that like it's easy. It's not, he admitted. But it can be simple. Claire let that sit. The truck was warm, and Owen's small weight against her made her feel steady in a way she hadn't in years. When they got back to town, Jack pulled into her driveway instead of the shop. You want to come in? She asked. He looked like he wanted to say yes, but then he glanced back at Owen, who was still asleep. I should get him home. He's got a school thing tomorrow. Claire nodded, disappointed but understanding. Jack shifted in his seat. Claire. Yeah, I don't want to rush this. I know it's been fast and weird, and built on a pile of lies, technically, but what I feel for you, it's not fake. And I want to do this right. Claire swallowed. Me too. Jack leaned over, pressing a light kiss to her temple. I'll call you tomorrow, she nodded. Good night, Jack. Good night, Claire. She watched the truck disappear down the road, heart thudding in a new rhythm. Back inside, she changed into pajamas and curled up on the couch, Owen's snow globe still sitting on the windowsill. She picked it up, gave it a gentle shake, and watched the flakes fall. Her phone buzzed again. Text from Delaney. Saw your kiss in the parking lot yesterday. Well done. Rom-com level perfection. Claire rolled her eyes but smiled. Text back. Please stop lurking. Delaney. Never. You're too interesting now. The rest of the night passed in a quiet hum, the tree lights flickering, the heater ticking in the corner. Claire dozed off with a blanket pulled up to her chin and a sense of something unfamiliar humming in her chest. Hope. The next morning she woke to the scent of cinnamon and a soft knock at her door. Groggy, she wrapped her robe tighter and padded over, expecting it to be Delaney, with another surprise latte or a holiday flyer. But it wasn't Delaney. It was Connor. Claire froze. He stood there, awkward in a too-expensive coat, holding a gift bag with metallic ribbon and that same half-smirk he used to wear like armor. I was in town, he said. Thought I'd drop this off. It's just a little something. For Christmas. Claire didn't reach for the bag. She stepped outside, letting the door click shut behind her. Why are you really here? She asked. Connor shrugged. You weren't answering my messages. I thought maybe we could talk. Talk, Claire repeated. After a year of silence, you just show up unannounced like we're in some Hallmark reunion scene I didn't come to fight. Then what, I guess? I saw that picture of you and the kid. And the guy. I didn't expect that. Claire stared at him, snow catching in her lashes. You left, she said. Not quietly, not kindly. And now I'm happy, and that somehow makes you want to talk. Connor looked away. I didn't think you'd actually move on this fast, he admitted. Claire exhaled slowly. This isn't fast. This is finally. She turned toward the door. Claire. She looked back. Don't come by again. Then she stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking, but her heart felt certain. She reached for her phone and typed out a message. To Jack. Something weird happened this morning. Can I tell you about it later? Over Coco. A moment passed. Jack, always. Want me to come now? Claire stared at the screen, the words glowing back at her. And she smiled. Snow blanketed the neighborhood in a fresh, glistening coat by the time Jack knocked on Claire's door. She opened it without hesitation, her eyes already telling him more than the text had. He stepped inside, brushing snow from his shoulders. He showed up, Claire said simply, wrapping her sweater tighter around her. Connor. Jack froze for just a moment. Did he say something to upset you? Claire shook her head. Not really. He brought some gift, wanted to talk. Said he saw the picture from the brunch. Jack's jaw tensed, but he didn't speak. He didn't do anything. But just standing there with that same old smirk, like no time had passed, like he still had a right to anything in my life. Her voice cracked. It brought everything back. Jack took a step closer, but didn't touch her. What did you say to him? I told him not to come back. Then I shut the door. A beat passed between them, heavy but clean. No confusion, no masks. I'm proud of you, Jack said quietly. Claire's throat tightened. I didn't feel strong. I felt shaky and angry and small. Jack moved gently, resting his hand on her forearm. Strength doesn't always feel good when you're in it. Sometimes it just feels like not running. She looked up at him, her eyes full. You're not small, Claire. Not even close. The words undid her a little. She took a slow breath, grounding herself. Will you stay? She asked. Just for a while, Jack nodded, and they moved to the couch. She poured cocoa, the kind with too many marshmallows, and the room filled with warmth and quiet safety. Owen was still at a playdate, the house theirs alone. I've been thinking, Claire said after a few minutes, about what happens when Christmas is over. When all of this goes back to normal? Jack turned toward her. What do you think that looks like? I don't know. That's what scares me. She twisted the edge of her blanket. We made this arrangement to get through the holidays. But I don't want to go back to pretending it was just a temporary fix. Jack's voice was low. Neither do I. Claire hesitated. Then why haven't you said anything? Jack set his mug down slowly. Because every time I look at you, I feel everything at once. And it's the best kind of terrifying. But I also know how hard you've worked to feel steady again. I didn't want to rush it. Claire's eyes softened. You're not rushing me. I love being with you, he said. And I love what Owen becomes when you're around. But I want this to be something we choose, not something we fall into because it's convenient or cute during the holidays. It's not cute, Claire whispered. It's real. That's the scariest part. Jack leaned in, not touching, just letting the space between them close. I want real, but only if you do too. Claire didn't answer right away. Her fingers found his, laced them slowly. I want to build something, she said. Not fix something broken, not escape something painful. Something new. Jack nodded his thumb, brushing over hers. Then let's build it. Brick by brick, no pretending. Claire exhaled. Even when it gets messy, especially then. The room felt different after that. Less like a hiding place, and more like a beginning. The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows. But inside there was only quiet certainty. They didn't need to define every piece of it right now. They just needed to keep showing up. Together. 3 days before Christmas, Claire found herself back at the tree farm. This time, not for show, but because she wanted to be. The place was quieter now. Most of the big trees already picked over, just a few scraggly ones leaning like sleepy soldiers in the snow. Jack was there helping Walt stack firewood near the main office. Sleeves pushed up, breath visible in the chill. He hadn't seen her yet. She paused for a moment, just watching him. The ease in his shoulders, the way he laughed at something Walt said. There was something grounded about him, unshaken, but not closed off. And more than anything, Claire realized she felt safe here, not just physically, but emotionally. Safe to want something real again. Don't just stare at him like he's a Christmas decoration. Delaney's voice broke the silence behind her. Go say something. Claire jumped, half laughing. Do you live in the shadows now? Only when there's a good subplot brewing. Delaney sipped her coffee and eyed Jack. He's steady, like one of those old oak tables your grandma had. You don't find many like that anymore. Claire smiled. I know. Then tell him, Delaney said simply, before Christmas turns into one of those almost stories. Claire nodded, heart hammering. I think I will. She walked across the snow-packed lot, breath catching a little with every step. Jack turned just as she reached him. Hey, he said, surprised but warm. Wasn't expecting you. I needed a break, she said, tucking her gloved hands into her coat. And maybe a tree for the front porch. Something small and sad. Jack chuckled. I've got a perfect Charlie Brown one near the back, half bald, totally lovable. They walked together, quiet, settling between them like a familiar song. You okay? He asked after a minute. Claire nodded, then shook her head. Yes. No. I don't know. Jack stopped, turning toward her. Talk to me. She looked up at him, heart thudding. I meant what I said the other night, about wanting something real, about building it slowly, but I think I've been holding back still. Jack didn't interrupt. Claire took a breath. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for someone to pull the rug out. I think part of me still doesn't believe I get to have this. Jack's expression softened. You do, he said quietly. Claire searched his face. And you're really all in. He smiled, but it wasn't casual. It was quiet, grounded, full of weight. I wake up thinking about you. I go to sleep hoping tomorrow I get more time with you. And Owen. He already calls you Claire like it's a superhero name. Claire laughed through sudden tears. Jack reached for her hand, holding it between his own. You don't have to rush. But don't push me away either. Let me be here. She nodded, eyes glistening. I want that. I really do. Jack tilted his head just slightly. Then let's start with a tree. He picked out a tiny, lopsided fir, barely 4 feet tall. Claire laughed when she saw it. It's hideous. It's hopeful, Jack corrected. And slightly pathetic, like us, maybe. She grinned. Perfect. As he tied it to the roof of her car, snow began falling again, soft, slow, quiet. The world around them seemed to hush. Come by tonight, she asked. Help me decorate it. Jack gave a gentle nod. Wouldn't miss it. They stood there for a second longer than they needed to, not speaking, not moving, just letting the moment wrap around them like the snow. Claire drove away with the tree bouncing lightly on her roof and something warm and strange blooming in her chest. This wasn't just fake turned real. It was real becoming more. That evening, Claire lit the fireplace and turned on the tiny string of white lights she'd wrapped around the little tree. It sat proudly in the corner of the living room, slightly crooked, but glowing its bare spots filled with mismatched ornaments and Owen's paper crafts from school. There was something so real, so lived in about it, like a story told in pine needles and imperfect glitter. She was laying out a plate of ginger cookies when the knock came. Jack stepped inside, carrying a tote bag, cheeks pink from the cold, and Owen just behind him, arms full of wrapped presents in mismatched paper. We brought reinforcements, Jack said, setting the bag down. Claire smiled. "What is all this?" Jack grinned. "You said decorate, so we brought Coco extra ornaments and Owen's entire collection of glitter glue." Owen gave a proud nod. "I made 5 reindeer with googly eyes." "Of course you did," Claire said, laughing. They set up in the living room, music playing softly in the background. Owen took over the decorating, narrating each placement with dramatic flair. Claire and Jack sat on the floor beside the tree, sipping cocoa, knees brushing occasionally in that tentative, charged way. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. Jack looked at her. "You never have to thank me for that." Claire watched Owen hang a reindeer ornament sideways and let out a happy sigh. "Your house feels like Christmas now," Jack said, looking around. "It hasn't in a long time," she admitted. "Not since Mom." Jack nodded slowly. "I get that." Claire glanced at him. What was Christmas like with Bethany? He took a breath, eyes distant but warm. She loved lights. The more the better. It drove me nuts. One year she put pink flamingos and Santa hats on the lawn, said we needed to stand out. Claire laughed softly, resting her head on her knees. "She sounds like she was magic." "She was." He paused. "But she's gone. And for a long time I thought joy left with her. Until this year." Claire looked at him. Jack didn't look away. "Being around you, it feels like the first time I've let Christmas in again, really in." Her chest tightened. "That means a lot, truly." He looked at her for a long second. "Claire, I need to ask you something. And I want the honest answer." She sat up straighter. "Okay." He hesitated, then spoke gently. "When January comes, when the lights come down, and this isn't a story we're telling for your family, do you still want me here?" Claire's breath caught. Not because she didn't know, but because it had taken her this long to be brave enough to say it. "Yes," she said without flinching. "I do. I want this beyond Christmas." Jack let out a quiet breath like he'd been holding it for days. Claire smiled, then added, "But it has to be real, Jack. Not perfect, not easy. Just real." He reached for her hand. "I wouldn't know how to give you anything else." Owen interrupted by climbing onto Claire's lap with a grin. "We need to name the tree." Claire laughed. "Okay, what's your vote?" Stanley Owen declared. "Because he's kinda weird but also kinda the best. Stanley it is," Jack said, pulling Owen into a half hug. "Best tree we've ever had." They sat there together on the rug, 3 people in a quiet room, the fire crackling, and the tree glowing lopsided but proud. It was simple. It was messy. It was real. And Claire, for the first time in years, didn't feel like she was pretending anything at all. Christmas Eve arrived like a slow exhale. The town had settled into its own quiet rhythm, last-minute shoppers, shuffling through the snow carols playing faintly from store speakers, lights twinkling on every porch. Claire's house felt different that morning, not just decorated but lived in, warmed by memory, alive with anticipation. She stood by the window watching flurries drift past her hands wrapped around a mug Jack had brought over the week before. It said, "World's okayest cook." She couldn't help but smile every time she used it. Today was the church brunch. The one Delaney had insisted they attend weeks ago, back when the whole fake dating idea still felt like a joke that had spiraled too far. Now it was the beginning of something real and terrifying in a different way. Her dress lay on the bed, a soft pine green wrap that hugged her figure just enough without trying too hard. It had belonged to her mother. Claire had found it folded in a cedar box in the back of her closet, untouched for years. Wearing it felt like both a risk and a hug. Her phone buzzed. "Jack. We're outside." Owen says we're picking up the prettiest lady in Montana." She laughed, cheeks flushing, and texted back quickly. "Claire, tell him she'll be right out and she's bringing cookies." The brunch was already buzzing when they arrived. Long tables filled the church basement, garlands strung across the ceiling, the smell of cinnamon and ham heavy in the air. Kids darted between legs. Grandmas set down casseroles like trophies. Claire held Owen's hand as they stepped inside Jack, walking close behind them. Delaney spotted them immediately, eyes lighting up with something between victory and pure glee. "There's my favorite scandalous couple," she whispered, pulling Claire in for a side hug. "You look insane, in the best way." Claire gave her a look. "You swore this wouldn't be a thing." Delaney smirked. "Too late. Your table's right up front, with Aunt Gloria, who still thinks you and Jack are engaged." Claire groaned, and Jack leaned in. "Should I be worried?" Claire smiled. "Only if you're afraid of passive-aggressive prayers and 6 types of Jell-O?" The meal passed in a blur of polite smiles, warm food, and light conversation. Jack was steady beside her, responding gently, when people made assumptions, gently correcting without making a scene. At one point, Claire caught Owen bragging to another boy about how Claire made Dad laugh at Coco last night. Her heart ached in the best way. It all felt almost too good. After the meal, the kids were ushered into the adjoining room for a short nativity play. Claire stayed seated as Jack helped Owen find a spot near the front. She watched them for a long moment before Delaney plopped down beside her, sliding a gingerbread cookie her way. "You're glowing," Delaney said. Claire took a bite. "It's the overhead lighting. It's the guy." Claire didn't argue. Delaney leaned in. "You know, for what it's worth, I think you two pulled off something way bigger than a lie. I think you stumbled into exactly what you were both afraid to want." Claire swallowed hard. "I'm still afraid." "Good," Delaney said. "That means it matters." The play began, kids in oversized robes and crooked halos, and the room fell into a kind of reverent silence. Claire watched Owen clap too early, Jack's soft laugh from the back, the way his eyes met hers across the room. Steady. Certain. Afterward, as people bundled into coats and shuffled out into the snow, Jack found her by the coffee table, Owen tugging at his arm for one more cookie. "You good, Jack?" asked, brushing a curl from her cheek. Claire nodded. "Yeah, better than good." He leaned in. "Tonight dinner at my place, I want to cook for you." "Just you." Her heart skipped. Yes. And just like that, Christmas Eve didn't feel like an end. It felt like the beginning of something entirely new. The snow was still falling as Claire stood on Jack's porch, a small gift bag in one hand, the other buried deep in her coat pocket, fingers clenched. The wind had quieted. Christmas Eve had settled into that strange stillness only Montana could deliver, peaceful, yes, but expectant too. Like the sky was holding its breath. She hadn't knocked yet. Inside, she could see a soft glow from the kitchen. She heard the low hum of Frank Sinatra playing on Jack's old radio, and the faint sound of a wooden spoon clinking against a pot. She could even make out Owen's shadow dancing on the far wall arms, waving like he was directing an orchestra made of invisible snowflakes. It should have been simple. Walk in, smile, share a meal, be together. But a part of her still lingered on the edge of it all, quietly afraid. Afraid of it being too perfect. Afraid of letting it be. The door opened before she could raise her hand. Jack stood there, apron over his, Henley holding a dish towel, and looking more like home than any place she'd ever lived. "I was starting to think you got lost in the snow," he said, voice low and warm. Claire tried to smile. "I almost did." Jack studied her reading more than her words. "You okay?" She nodded. "Just figuring out how not to run from something good." He didn't rush her. just stepped back. "Well," he said, "come inside. Dinner's almost ready, and Owen's already declared you get the first cookie." Claire laughed softly and stepped in. The warmth hit her instantly, the heat from the stove, the scent of rosemary and roasted garlic, the sound of Owen humming from the living room as he lined up Christmas-themed action figures across the rug. Jack had set the table. Mismatched plates, cloth napkins. A single candle flickered between them. "You made this feel like a movie," Claire said, removing her coat. "I was going for barely functioning bachelor," Jack teased. "But I'll take the compliment." She handed him the gift bag. "It's not much, just something small." Jack opened it slowly. Inside was a hand-carved ornament in the shape of a pine tree, the name Stanley etched across the bottom in her careful handwriting. Jack smiled, quiet and full. "You remembered. I thought he deserved more than one holiday." Jack looked at her, then, not just at her face, but into her. The way he always did, like he saw not just what she was saying, but what she hadn't yet figured out how to say. "Claire," he said gently, "I know this started as pretend. I know you've had to untangle a lot, but what's between us now? It's not fake, not one bit, I know. And I'm not asking you to make promises tonight. I just want you to know I'm here. When you're scared, when you're not sure, when it gets messy." Claire stepped closer. Her heart felt full in a way that almost hurt. "I don't want to be anywhere else," she said. "Not anymore." Jack set the ornament down, reached for her hand. "I want 100 boring, real messy days with you," he said, "not just the shiny ones." Her eyes stung. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. "You already have me. Scared or not." They stood there for a long moment, wrapped not just in each other, but in the quiet relief of finally choosing the thing that had been waiting for them all along. Owen peeked around the corner. "Are you two done doing the forehead hug? Because the cookies are getting cold." Claire laughed through her tears, brushing them away quickly. Jack grinned and pulled her toward the table. Dinner was simple and perfect. Roast chicken potatoes, green beans, warm rolls. Owen told them his elaborate theory about how Santa probably used a snowmobile when reindeer were tired. Jack teased her for buttering the rolls backwards. Claire made them all laugh with a story about Delaney's attempt to make vegan fudge last year that had turned into something resembling drywall. After dessert, Jack handed Claire a small, square box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a key. Not flashy, not ceremonial, just a simple house key with a red ribbon tied around it. Claire looked up, breath catching. "I don't want to pressure you," Jack said quickly. "This doesn't mean anything huge, it's just in case you ever want to come home and find the lights already on." Claire held the key like it was glass, like it was a heartbeat. "Jack, I'm not asking for all the answers," he said softly. "Just a start." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. It's already so much more than that. Later, after Owen was asleep and the candle had burned halfway down, Claire stepped out onto the porch for air. The snow had stopped. Stars blinked cold and quiet overhead. Jack joined her a moment later, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She leaned into him. "Funny," she whispered. "I thought coming back here would feel like going backwards." And now he asked. She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Now it feels like starting over with everything I actually want." Jack kissed the top of her head, and she closed her eyes. In that stillness, under a sky full of stars and silence, Claire realized something she hadn't dared believe before. She hadn't lost her story. She was finally writing the one that mattered.